Welcome to another episode of Pivot and Prosper. This is a podcast where we speak with entrepreneurs, business owners, and C-suite executives in the marketing industry to hear their stories of growth with relentless perseverance. Today, I have the joy of introducing Perryn Olson, a brand and marketing strategy leader for over 20 years, and now a fractional CMO from New Orleans, Louisiana, with Alt CMO, a fractional CMO group serving the construction industry businesses as the arm for company growth. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks, Joe. That intro sounds perfect. I think we're done now.
We can cut there, right?
Yep. I think we're done.
So we had a great little discussion kind of before we got started here, but I'm really pumped to kind of kick off and learn more about this industry and what you're doing in this industry here. Talk to me about the initial inspiration for starting this business and the vision that drives you here.
This is something I've wanted to do for a while. I started my career at a very small graphic design, brand marketing, web development company. And we started going vertical into construction. It was an opportunity I took about 20 years ago. But it was always kind of this thing there's always this vendor-client relationship that you have. There's this wall, there's information you didn't have. There's times like you'd launch a website and you couldn't get KPIs because you're done. Engagement's gone. You know, you're always kind of this, I call it feeding the machine. You're always looking for the next project to work. And I've always hated that. And I actually went internal for, I don't know, 6-7 years. And what I loved was the granularity, but what I hated was the one brand. You know, I had a mentor hire me that worked at his IT firm, MSP, managed service provider, and to start their marketing team. I was his first marketer. He was my first internal job. And I love the granularity. And he's like, what are you worried about? I'm like, I'm really worried about working for one brand. I used to work for 20 brands at a time. Like, I just don't know what to do. So, did that job for a while, 3 CEOs in 4.5 years. It was time to leave and end up at a company called Rex that actually had 3 companies, 7 brands, actually grew it to 8. 6 brands, grew it to 8 brands for us. And now they're a client of mine because they don't need as much help on some of the other side. The Rex Construction, Rex Engineering didn't need as much help. But one of their core piece, Super Droid robots, still need a lot of help. And we were looking at kind of shifting things in the business model. And it kind of took it as an opportunity. I met someone with the Alt CMO team through connections on LinkedIn. And just, we hit it off. And it was like everything was clicking. I'd kind of been researching this fractional CMO thing for a couple of years and done some freelance on the side with consulting, help people with strategies, content strategies. But I could never do the ongoing piece. It was always just kind of one and done. I could work around with my schedule, and it was just kind of the combination of the shift that was happening at Rex and SuperDroid and their needs, and then meeting Ryan at Alt CMO. And then I literally had a client, like the day I was like, I think I'm going to do this. And the client's called me, she's like, help, how can you help me grow my company with your current job? I'm like, funny you should say that, because I think I'm going to quit my job today. It's just like, so it just was like, all the things were kind of aligning, and it was more about how do we do that ongoing relationship with clients. It's what everyone wants with their vendors and their clients. Like, you want to have this relationship where you're there. The fractional CMO, this business model fits that. We're essentially an internal hire. We operate as a CMO. Like, still at SuperGrow, I actually still manage the sales team. I still hire and fire people on those teams and things like that, because that's the role I fill. I still jump on the sales calls, things like that as needed. It's actually been interesting. We've made that transition from W-2 to 1099 essentially. Some of the team members are like, what's different? I'm like, instead of working for your other sister companies, I'm now going to work with other companies. Like, that's the difference. I've always been essentially a fractional CMO back then. I just happen to work with all the same family of companies. So not a lot changed, but there's all those things that we can really add more value since we're there. We can get to that granularity, but we also bring in that outside opinion, things like that, where, some of our clients, you kind of have that pigeonhole look of, you see the microcosm, you see what's inside your 4 walls, you forget what's on the outside. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of have that balance of both. We know what's going on. We're never going to know as much as our clients know, because we're not in it 40 hours a week for years and years, where we're kind of playing catch up there, but we also bring in the outside opinion. Like, the other day I have a client that's trying to transition from residential to commercial and siding and roofing. And I have another one that's trying to do the same thing in demolition. Yeah. There's actually some interesting similarities. They're totally different markets, different services, but they're both trying to make this, transition from residential to commercial. There's certain things that we're working on, certain tools that we're looking at. Even, could we buy this for our firm to help both of them that neither one could afford themselves? So that was really just kind of this all thing happened, and the whole fractional CMO thing really kind of helped or evolved with COVID. People are more comfortable with remote. They're more comfortable with having that but there's still that kind of connotation of consultant, and this isn't really a consulting role. It's we're embedded. We're an internal hire. We tell all our clients, treat us like an internal hire.
That's awesome. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
I feel like the word of
long-winded, but it's
no, it's good because fractional CMO. What does the fractional mean to a lot of companies and to those who are watching, to either other businesses, if they're debating bringing someone in as a full-time W-2 hire or a fractional CMO arm or an agency that they work with. Like, what do all these models mean? And it's in a world where it's so convoluted, and many folks like, I just don't know what I need. I think that explains it really well, and makes them feel, geez, you're like, I guess you're part of the family in essence too.
Yeah,
they're invested in the results far more than these agencies.
And what changed was the being local. When I went internal, actually, one of the business models I was talking to my mentor about was, maybe I'll work here for 2 or 3 years. Eventually, I'll be bored and done, and I'll be over too expensive, and I'll backfill myself, a hire marketing coordinator. I'll go do this with another company and just kind of build up kind of the model there. He ended up selling his part of the business before that kind of implemented, and then it just, the way life works, it doesn't always follow the vision you have, but it's very similar to what I was trying to do almost 10 years ago there. But with COVID, people are more accepting of hiring somebody remotely. I've seen a lot of companies that used to only hire local, and now they're hire remote. When I was at Rex and Supergrid, I was 100% remote. I was 1,000 miles from headquarters, which was my home office essentially. And so now it's really the same thing. It's just people are more open to that. And we've seen this in construction for a while, which is really where I've mostly spent my time. Is they've been doing fractional CFOs for a while. There's a couple even franchises out there for retire. It's kind of the place to go when CFOs want to semi-retire. They'll kind of become a fractional or CFO consultant. So it's very known in the construction industry, and it's now starting to take its hold in the CIO suite, maybe even the CTO, the technology. The CMO is still a little bit new. That's still kind of moving some more market, but there's a huge void in the industry of actually chief marketing officers in construction. There's maybe 20, but when I started in construction 20 years, there's maybe 2.
Wow.
So we're evolving. We're getting there. Marketing is starting to get a seat at the table. It's a big issue in this industry. There's just having that seat at the table, and that's on the big companies. Now, how do you bring that down to a much smaller company that's 50 employees, 100 employees? It's only the companies that generally have thousands of employees that have a chief marketing officer.
Hey, starting at that hire point right there and bring it down. It's if they're seeing what's working, on the higher end, then obviously it's someone has to speak up or bark at it to be like, hey, like, where's the marketing arm here, right? It's crucial in any business.
Yeah. The biggest complaint we hear from construction workers, the directors, the VPs is, the executives go off and come up with this company vision, the 3-year, the 5-year vision, which is great. And then they basically hand it to marketing. All right, go. And marketers like, this is horrible. Or how do you want me to do that? I had this happen to me before. I was even part of the vision. I'm like, great. Here's what we need to do. Oh, you don't get any more budget for that. You want to 10x the company. Like,
right?
How are we going to 10x the company if we don't 10x the budget, or even 10% more of the budget? Like, just we need to work in some realities here. So it's fun to talk growth and have a 10-year plan that you're going to 10x the company. That's great. How are we going to do it? It's a lot of companies I think miss that, and this, and we can bring that kind of knowledge as a fractional, and we can distribute that and, like I said, share knowledge without worrying about NDAs, because we're not using names, we're not sending proprietary, but we can just use what we've learned from one client to another, and sometimes in real time. Sometimes it's just, I was on a board meeting with one and hop into another client call, and it's like, wait, this is the same thing we're dealing with, but those boards never would have met.
Just sharing the ideas of knowing what works, and with the right teams, and hey, the proper communication with sales, finance, accounting, executive leadership, etc. I agree. Which kind of segues great into this next question here of what would you say are some key challenges that you've faced and how you've navigated through them? Maybe it's specifically with the business or with clients and not understanding what they need, but let's talk about that.
I mean, the business is, you leave a full-time job, make them a client, it's great, but they're not paying you what they were paying you. I gave up the full-time salary, because I'm not giving the same value. I wasn't internal, but also I don't have the burden, things like that with them. So you got to go find clients. I think one of the hardest things about starting is, how do you start this first 2 clients? And luckily, I've been doing this a while. Just even announcing I'm now doing this, you get a few LinkedIn messages, a few text messages. Hey, we need to talk. Which is great. So, and that's ideally what you want. And you just planted seeds for years. But that's the challenge right now, is how do I essentially, still take care of my family and even find the right clients. I think one of the big issues of most companies is you take a lot of clients just because you need revenue. and you'll take whatever. Anyone that's got a pulse, anyone that's got a dollar, you'll do it. And
Right.
man, that can bite you for a while. So it's, still having some minimums, having some standards. And as you grow, you can still kind of cut some of the smaller clients. But it's also, who you want. I knew going in, I want to focus on construction. Construction's still really broad. And out of my, the clients I have and the clients we're even potential clients we're talking to, all over the place. It's not your traditional, companies that are just building buildings, just building roads. There's construction technology companies, consultants for the industry. So there's a plethora of different, industry. Plus there's dozens of trades within construction that are all completely different. So it's been interesting to see, and I've seen this over the last 2 decades I've been in construction, just how vast it really is. But it's also interesting to just be able to come to the table with certain information. Like, I know this because I know construction. It's even though I'm not a technology SaaS marketer, but a construction focused SaaS reached out to us. He's like, our buyer persona because you are our buyer persona. Like, you've been there before. Like, he had a fractional CMO and he's like, he was great. He could do all the things, but he just didn't know construction. And construction's a different animal. And because it's B2B, but it's proposal based and there's safety regulations. It's a different thing that a lot of things that I just almost take for granted. So I think that's the thing, is just the biggest business challenge is that start, and not taking anyone that just will give you $1 because you're desperate. I knew, having the conversation with the wife and even the kids of like, hey, we're going to be a little lean for a while. We're going to be smart and we're going to play the long game here. But the opportunities are so much bigger.
I couldn't agree more, and can definitely resonate with that one here. I mean, of all the, and we talked about this earlier before it started, the YouTube gurus out there in their 20s that say, hey, just get started, just get moving. Yes, and absolutely. Taking the first step in the thought process of saying, I want to achieve this, I want to move forward, but I'm just going to quit my corporate job here and just it is a hard and difficult map to navigate and run through. And I remember my first couple clients, if they would have said, hey, I need these few things done, but also can you come over on Sunday and mow my lawn? I would have said, absolutely, I'll be there. I'll take a flight and I'll mow it to make money. I don't care.
10, 15 years ago, I would have totally done that. I mean, it's just, and I'm glad I'm starting this a little later. I'm not in my early 20s straight out of school and just trying to make things work. I'm not jumping into the startup world essentially, but it's, I'm starting to see this backlash on what some of the people are calling the marketing bros, just do this and follow this thing. And I remember years ago, working with a client, and she bought a course and we're going to follow it. And the course is great. And we're going like, this makes a lot of sense. This fall. And then all of a sudden you get to the point where, I'll put down $50,000 a month in Facebook and Google ads. I'm like, they didn't put that in the front bio when you bought it for $2,000 or, a course or whatever it was. I mean, you thought you were buying a $2,000 course and they're going to teach you things. And it did help. This was an expert that was trying to sell a training course. And there was a lot of good stuff. When you got to that, like, it wasn't, here's how you start and test your market and scale and all that. I'm like, that's a problem. You don't have 20 grand a month and drop or 50 grand a month. Like, because these guys were essentially maxing out Facebook's daily limit is what they were at. I'm just like, they figured it out. Their businesses are essentially on autopilot already. But that's them. They're the 1% that makes it work. I'm curious how many of their own clients made it work.
Not us. Who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
and everyone along the way as well too.
Yeah, they'll give you testimonials. They'll give you case studies. The best case study I've ever seen a testimony. I had a contract I worked with years ago. He's like, here's our client list from the last X amount of years we've been with us. Call any one of them. I don't care who you call. I know even if you call a bad client, what they'll say about us, because we have that relationship. I'm like, the boldness of that, I almost don't need to call. But it was also, and I even asked him, like, why do you do that? And he goes, well, there's a couple reasons. One is I truly want them to do that, and I'm not gonna have a bad client, and if I do, they'll at least say it was worth it, and here's where the mistakes happen, like, and they've learned from it. Like, they've done a good job of adding closure to bad projects, because I don't want to give out the same 2 or 3 people, because those same 2 or 3 people get taxed all the time. That one Stein client, now your client's calling you, hey, can you stop giving me on your reference list? Because, they're calling me, wasting my time. Because if I at least give out 50 names, a random assortment of people are going to call I'm not taxing my own clients. So like,
right. But
he just had that swagger to it. It's like, call any one of them.
It's powerful.
And I'm pretty sure, it's been a while since I've worked with him, but I'm pretty sure he's still doing the same thing. It's powerful.
Amazing. Yeah. Really cool. Okay. So then let's continue on to that side with your clients' growth of your role, or the role as a whole, and your
Yeah.
role of marketing and specifically brand building for your
Yeah.
clients. Let's talk about that.
So I think the important thing with the brand building is you got to get personal. You got to understand the client. Like, I like asking the owner, why'd you start this company? Because it's hard to start a company. Rarely ever heard somebody, oh, it's make more money. There's usually this, I was at a job, they were doing something wrong. I saw an opportunity. Like, there's some catalyst. Occasionally there's that, money seeking people, and then they find their way. You're not in business usually for a while to do that. And so one of my favorite things to do in construction is get out in the field. It's fun to go to job sites, but usually that you go find this like old timer on the job site, and they'll tell you what really the company's all about. They'll know more about the company and why clients hire them, because they're front lines. They'll tell you why employees work for them more than the CEO or the founder can. So it's good to go talk to those people, and you really just kind of find that personality. Because I think one of the biggest mistakes marketers can make is driving revenue from clients that are a bad fit. So I love this. We hear a lot with account-based marketing or ABM, ideal client. And I love the term ideal client, because I want to talk to the operations people. Like, who are the clients you like working with? Who are the clients that are not a pain in the ass? Because if I bring in, I could double your revenue. If I double your revenue with pain in the ass clients, now we're going to have problems with employee turnover, or even client turnover, because they're just a bad fit. The mentor that hired me at the IT firm, he was really big on, round peg, round hole, not oval hole. Oval hole will look good, it will fit, but it will grind. And he was amazing analogies. Sometimes
I like that.
But it was this physical idea of grinding a round peg and oval hole. It's like because it looks like it fits, and it kind of does, but there's some room on the edge, but it's still that grind. So it's like you got to really understand your company's personality, and then who's the clients you're trying to drive. I had a long conversation with my own team this morning. Like, should we wear jackets on a phone call with a prospect, or should we wear the cowboy hat and the baseball caps? Like, who are we? And I'm like, we've literally said at the end, if somebody's not going to hire us because we're not in a suit, do we want to work with them? Like, that was the decision we want to have. If somebody's not going to hire us because Ryan's wearing a cowboy hat because he's in Texas and that's what he's comfortable in, do we want to work with them? Like, we talk, if we're dealing with lawyers and bankers and all that, we probably would have to wear the suits. We're talking to construction guys. They generally are not wearing suits. Like, it's different. And I realize you're wearing a jacket right now. Like, but that's your market. That's who you are. That might be more comfortable. And I told him, I don't like wearing suits, but I'm much more comfortable in a suit than a cowboy hat. It just doesn't feel like me. I feel like I'm pretending to be someone. Versus Ryan on my team is like, no, this is me. This is naturally who I am. I'm bald. I wear a hat. Like, we're trying to dig in our own personality, because it's a newer company. We're trying to define who Alt CMO is. We're doing this to ourselves. We're essentially this collection of CMOs that are all this own independent personalities. We're trying to, who are we now? Who we want to be in the future? But that was a big thing. Is like, that was literally a 20-minute conversation this morning. Do we wear sports coats on sales calls?
Yeah, your brand identity is equally as valuable as the brand identities you're trying to work with your clients, right? You can't be
here's a fun question. Every once in a while, this will come up. Why do marketing firms not do market? Why do advertising firms not do advertising?
That's a great question, and I often talk with other agencies about this as well too. Many times it's what my business puts the least amount of time into, or doesn't even look into at all, is the marketing for my own business. That's how the call to actions, how the forms, how everything's working in the funnel. And we need to we're constantly working on our clients, which is great for them. But then other people look at us and like, well, if he doesn't do it that way, well, no, it's because I'm caring about. But
the cobbler's kids have no shoes. With the best agencies I've worked at, with marketing firms, and the first thing I did Alt CMO was we created a client in our system that's called Alt CMO. Like, we need to treat ourselves as a client. I need to put time on our own website, because our website right now sucks. It's not who we are. So we're trying to go through those exercises and treat that. And so, we got to work around client work. We have our own deadlines, but we're making deadlines. Like, we're trying to launch our own new website. We're trying to launch our new podcast. Like, those are things that we've had to make time for. Otherwise, it'll never get done. Yeah.
I think which also piggybacks into a term, I've used, I'm sure many others use as well too, putting our time and focus into revenue generating activity. Right?
Yeah. I used to hate that question when a CEO would like, are you focusing on revenue generating things? I'm like, no. And one of the things I learned a lot working at Rex was the CEO is a structural engineer, and he thinks like an engineer, and he's very much obsessed with process improvement, which fine, but he'll call you out on it. He's like, why are we doing this? and you just shit. And then, but there are times that
Yeah.
he would ask you that, and I could say, we're doing this for the long game. This is where this is leading. This is the path. We have to do this now because this is the path we're going to be on in a year or two. Okay. Or he was very good at understanding if you gave him a reason we were doing it. But there's sometimes you're filling out a KPI dashboard. It's like, do we really care about that KPI? And I think that's another thing that really struggles, that going back to that client vendor relationship. There's a lot of digital agencies that have vanity metrics in there because they know they can drive them up. They can truly control that. It's hard to truly, like, I care more about, are we closing this? I had a client the other day. I'm like, I need you to set, he's a new client. I need you to set up a way that we understand how many web leads, phone calls, and stuff you're getting. And he's like, well, how do I know the phone calls are from you? We're going to get a separate phone. I'm like, that's a 20-year-old technology we've been doing. Okay. But I also need to know what their close rate is on them. He's like, why do you care? I'm like, because I care if you're closing the business. If I'm going to drive revenue and you can close 50% of the phone calls and 10% of the web, there's a disconnect somewhere. Or we need to drive this more people to the phone. Like, it's all about optimization. The data is good. And I'm talking to a finance guy, so he was all about it. But it's also accountability. Like, if I'm going to reposition your company, redo the website, redo the advertising channels, and we're not increasing the web leads, what are we doing? We got to change. We got to pivot. So, so it's, he got off the call. I was like, I feel a lot more comfortable now. Like, he just understood that we are here to actually help him grow, not just make him a pretty website. There's plenty of companies that make pretty websites. That's easy.
Yeah, agree. I hear you.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that methodology too. So one piece you mentioned there too, let's roll off of that. Talk to me about some lessons learned from failures or setbacks in the business, in the industry.
I think lessons learned are sometimes you have a good idea that you then go down that rabbit hole and then you don't stop because you spent so much time on it. And there are times you just need to cut bait and stop. Like, it's something changed, timing changed. I remember I had a piece one time, we were doing this direct mail piece, and it was going to be this big, expansive die cut and all this, like, really cool piece. It was this introduction firm. So we'd brought in this really high-end professional. We want to announce that he's with the firm. Yeah, then budget got cut. Like, just, we went from essentially a $10,000 budget to print to, I think it was like $1,000. And I was like, okay, so we refocused, we made it work. But at one, I should have said, at least had the conversation. Should we just not do this? Would we just do better just sending out lunch invites? Like, that's our goal, is to get a lunch meeting. Do we just pick up the phone and call people for lunch? I mean, so what we ended up doing was we sent out a smaller pieces so they'd recognize the name. And then we followed it up with the on-bomb videos, which are personalized. If you're familiar, so it's highly personalized stuff. They're usually short, little 5-second animated GIF in the email. So it was, there's tricks and stuff. You'd hold the sign like, "Hey Joe," so they know it's personalized to them. And then "Hey Joe, I'm over at this company now. I want to, I'd love to take you to lunch, get to know you, explain you a little bit more, things like that." 15-20 seconds done. Like, so we were able to pivot that with some tools we was already on the fence of buying, so it kind of allowed us to. So we ended up reallocating some funds, but like, the core focus, and it kind of like, why did we even do that damn mail piece at that point? Like, it was so cool. It looks good in the portfolio, but the marketing objectives were not met because that pivot of what had to happen. So.
Yeah, totally. And all these new applications, software, AI, we can go on and on, giving us the tools to stand out a little bit more and provide the personalized touch, so they know, what our care is, especially in a fractional role, right? There's not just coming as an agency and just, we'll do this, this, and who cares what the results are? You pay me in a retainer and I'm out, right? This is, we're here to maximize your results and to continue to help you through those ups and downs, et cetera, which they need to hear through a video, and maybe text isn't the right way to do it, right?
Oh yeah, totally. And I'll tell you the other thing I think, a lesson I learned the hard way, is marketers, you usually do on a lot of things. So you have that to-do list, and we just finished a great infographic, we finished a guide, we finished a webinar, whatever, big piece of content that you've been doing for months potentially. You put it on social, great. You might do a reminder, and you move on. That content's evergreen. You could still use it for years. And I think the best companies are doing something. I remember, this was a while ago, a guy on Twitter, I called him, I texted him, like, "Hey, well, I saw your tweet 3 times today." He goes, "Yeah, I post things 3 times." Like, when Twitter was really at its heyday. So this is probably 10 years ago. And he's like, "I've been doing this for 3 years. You're the first person to mention it." Like, it was just this aha moment of, we do need to push this stuff because the algorithms are different. There's times that I have a system for the Superdroid Robots company that will recycle stuff every 90 days or so. And it's interesting how many times the third or the fourth time that the same content has been distributed, all of a sudden it gets 20 likes instead of 2. It gets comments instead of none. Like, and I remember CEO, he actually commented when he's like, where did that idea come from? I'm like, oh, we talked about that 7 months ago. He's like, you just published it? I'm like, no, it's this 4th time it's been published. And for whatever reason, this one stuck. Like, and sometimes it's just the right couple of people click on something, or the right people comment, and it gets fed in. Like, I can tell you when some of the wrong times to post on LinkedIn is, because it gets no traction. I had an idea the other day. It was like, I don't know, 8:30 on a Wednesday, I think. And I posted something I thought was humorous, and it got like 2 people looked at it. Post something 8:30 in the morning, and I give
PM. In the morning? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I posted something because I was there, it was in the time, and didn't want to schedule it. And it was just, oh, this is funny. And even showed the people I was around. I'm like, oh, this is funny. And they were like, oh, it'll be fun. We'll go a little viral on that. I'm like, whatever. It just was funny. And I was like, it got nothing. And then I posted something like 8:30 in the morning the next day. That was much more business focused, not funny. It wasn't that much of a post, and it got like 1,000, 2,000 views. I'm like, what? Why? It's so, yeah. Sometimes it's just 2 clicks, 2 likes, and you can play the game at times. So
yeah, understanding your audience too, right? When are they on the platform?
Correct.
When is this key information? I think what the targeted time for LinkedIn posts, depending on your market, is Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central or something like that. Is like ideal to hit the country for the mass impact.
Oh, there's one guy I followed at LinkedIn. His ideal time is like Sunday at 8 p.m.
Really?
Yeah, his market.
When people are on. Yeah,
that's when he found people were on LinkedIn. I'm like, that is a very specific time. And I watched them. I watched a few of his posts, and you look at the time, and the Sunday night ones were always more popular. There's some email newsletters that come out Saturday morning. One like Corey sends out a construction focus newsletter Saturday morning. And I'm like, why? He's like, that's when the guys have time to read it. If I send it during the week, they're going to be busy, and the email gets missed. Now people actually check their email on Saturdays to see my email. I'm like, that's cool. That's power.
But this plays into too, not just going the cookie cutter method. I mean, there's some things that are kind of default and standard, but split testing a number of ideas in here, looking at the data, seeing what works best, the conversions. How do you optimize that instead of just going one specific way? And it didn't work for this period of time. Well, did you try anything else? And
that was
mapping it out.
The ultimate test is when you implement something and you see it helps revenue, but you then have to turn it off to see if it takes revenue away. Like, that's the ultimate test. And who's going to do that? What CEO or CFO is going to turn that thing off that just drove it 10% of revenue? Well, that's the way you know if it works.
Yeah,
so,
this is true.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, so kind of wrapping up here. This is all great, informative stuff, and I'm really enjoying this conversation. Talk to me about any advice for aspiring entrepreneurs or people who are seeking, marketers or entrepreneurs, let's put it that way, wanting to get in their own business to achieve success. And what does success mean to you?
Success means this comfort. I want to be able to go out to eat, buy something that I don't have to worry about the bill. Like, I just want to not stress the bills coming. That's, to me, success. I don't need $1 million. I don't need to be a trillionaire. I just want to know things are taken care of. Like, that's success for me, and be happy with what I do. But it's where I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners look like, you're going to pivot in your business. You hear this story all the time of how companies get started, and they start with one idea and they pivot and they pivot and pivot. I think as the companies grow, the more detached the executives get. One of the things I've seen over the years, what companies go, like, you see the Undercover Boss shows and things like that. And like, Target actually requires their executives to spend like a couple hours in a store every month. Well, that sounds so simple and so obvious. Well, Walmart doesn't. Which store has a better experience? Like, it's just things like that. Like, if you get so big, you get so far removed from the company, and you do sometimes. It is hard, and that's why the show like Uncover Boss happens. Is the CEO, they walk on site, everything's perfect. If Walt Disney walked into Disney World, everyone knew it was him. Like, he has that face. The current CEO, Bob Iger, like, if he walks into Disney, they're going to know it's him, and everything's perfect. Everything's perfect at Disney anyway. But he's still in the parks. He's still doing it. He still talks to people, and those most successful brands are still attached, or they have some type of voice. Like, one of the issues we're even having the robotics company here all the time is a company that they have a great idea. It'll save the company $5 million in safety issues and turnover and all this stuff, and they can't get someone to spend $5,000 on it because but yet you're going to have like a CFO bitch that no one ever gets ideas. No one's helping us think like a business and save money. No one's helping us innovate. It's like, you don't let them. You cut off all that feedback. So there's got to at least be either you go boots on the ground and go meet the customers, see the environment, see your workers, or you need to have a strong enough feedback that you're actually getting real feedback, not just yes men.
I couldn't agree more. That level of communication from the ground floor and from clients, people in your business, people who are looking to purchase your product or service, understanding their needs, wants, and ultimately, why do people buy? To have a problem solved, right?
Yes.
So, what is the problem that you're solving?
Yes.
What other problems do they have that resonate with that key piece? And how can you tie that in? So that's like you feel like they're talking to me. If you understand that, and the people on the ground floor, they're either building widgets or see the frustrations and the growth, and it's all tied together. You feel like a family. That's geez.
Oh, totally. No,
sky's the limit.
It's funny. I'm a big origin story person. I'll understand like behind the scenes, and even on the construction market, I'm obsessed with like how Disney operates their Imagineers, their marketing, because they do such a good job. They charge something. I think as much people bitch about their rates, they could charge double and people would go because there's less crowds. But Bob Iger talks like the reason we acquired Pixar is I was at a park and all the characters that we were licensing at the time came out, and I'm realizing they have more customer engagement. The audience is more engaged with their brand, their characters, not ours. They need to be part of ours. Then he went after Star Wars. Then he went after Marvel. Like he's collecting the pieces essentially, but to take care of his audience. He's filling in the gaps in his audience, but he's also just bringing them into that family because that's what his customers want. So it's literally, he was at a park when that aha moment. He's like, oh shit, we got to do this. And he paid a lot of money for Pixar because he knew he had to.
And when you realize it's there, it's like, wow, okay. Yeah. And that's when, I guess ultimately you can do a pivot and then prosper. Yeah. Right.
Totally.
I love it. Well, Perryn, thank you so much for your time. This has been great chatting with you about Alt CMO. We're going to put the link down below in the description for everyone who's watching. This is where we're here too, as long as your LinkedIn profile. But hey, I really enjoyed this conversation. It was great getting to know you, learning more about the industry and your insights, and some inspiration for everyone as well too. So again, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Excellent. Thank you.